Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Lifting. This episode was actually recorded on August 4th, 2019, and it has taken us a while to actually collect enough information to actually be able to do a show like this. And so tonight, we are actually going to start an understanding discussion of what everyone refers to as the Djinn. So you would think that the subject matter would be actually kind of succinct. The Djinn or a demon, or the Djinn or this or that, but it's actually more complicated. And so we're going to enhance a lot of information that people know a little bit about, give you guys a lot to think about. And again, as we move forward in our process of growing, a lot of our thoughts about different things are going to just expand. It's just more than what we knew. And so this is one of those times where, a lot to ponder, a lot to think about, and then how to place it into your life going forward. So we're going to talk about the Djinn tonight. For those of you that are new to hearing us, we always encourage you to start at the very beginning, because we talk about the skills that are needed to move forward in these new energies, things that everyone is going to have to grow into and be able to do as they move forward to prepare everyone for what they really want, which is disclosure and meeting some of the extraterrestrials that are all around us and out there in the cosmos. So this is actually a very important discussion in preparation and understanding so that could be done. So you could go to our website if you ever want to, thelifting2017.wixsite.com/thelifting, and listen to some of our episodes. You can hit the episode button, start at the beginning if you're brand new to this, and follow along when we talk about pretty much everything. So this show, for people that are new, this may not be right for you. So you have to use your discernment. You may need to start back and just hear some of the beginning conversations before you're even ready to hear something like this. So just keep that in mind. And what does discernment mean? Discernment just means what is right for me right now. It is not a statement of what is right and what is wrong, or what is good and what is bad. Discernment is about what needs to come into your life right now that is helpful to you. Everything else should be kind of left and revisit at a different time. Something may never be right for you, and later on down the road, something may feel more familiar and more acceptable to hear and listen to. So discernment is always key for you as you grow. So as always, before we get started in these discussions, we do a bit of a blessing. So a simple one today. Blessings to everyone that is out there listening to us right now. Open your hearts to hear expanded information on subjects that you may not know much actually about, and be willing to ponder how this works for you in your life. So with that, I am actually going to turn this over to Chris. He's going to start a pretty long discussion.
Alrighty. Hello, everyone. Today's topic of the Djinn is one that is very close to home for us. As such, we want to give you a brief history of the Djinn and their true capabilities. Believe it or not, they started out as their very own species and were captured by the Harvesters in the last great galactic war. They were the genies of old. The wishes that the genies would grant, per the legends, would almost always go wrong. Their wishes were actually entanglements to the Djinn masters. The legend of the genie's lamp was actually an edifice or device very much like a Dybbuk box or quantum box. The ancient generals, kings, or emperors sat within their very own cage while they unleashed the now uncaged Djinn on their enemies. Any human conjuring the Djinn never, and I repeat, never had true control. It was a matter of unleashing them and then retrieving them while staying safe yourself. Djinn were also routed by the AI and controlled by a receiver, such as a ring or wand, on the other end. An example of this is the legend of King Solomon and his ring. And I came to find out there were actually two Solomons too. There was a bad one and a good one. And the original ring, from what I understand from that one particular Djinn's perspective back in the day when I was actually a little more open to talking to beings like that, said that Solomon had stolen the ring from their people. The bad one did. Anyway, there was a good one and there was a bad one. It's a very complicated story that I won't go into at the moment, but just suffice it to say there was a little bit of thievery going on both ends. Over the years, they have attempted to make Djinn a part of our popular movie culture, such as Aladdin, and with ancient writings such as Arabian Nights. However, unlike the movies, if a person felt sorry for a Djinn and set them free, they actually become feral, uncontrollable creatures with a taste for mischief and mayhem. You see, they de-evolved during their many centuries of capture and sadly are no longer a species of their own. It's one of the very few that's actually happened to. I will list for you the known types of Djinn that I have personally encountered. There could be more that I don't know about. The first group is within a group I refer to as nature mimicry. Fire Djinn. These little bastards love fire but are highly allergic to it. These walking paradoxes get into a person's home and influence one to bring into the home flammable items such as gasoline, kerosene, or in some cases, candles, in order to get you to place these items strategically around your home. Then they will do the rest by either knocking over a candle or something flammable, or by causing an electrical fire in the home, thus igniting other flammables. They have then accomplished what they set out to do, which is to cause pain and mischief, either for a master or for themselves. Female Djinn. Some of the Syrian star beings fall into this category, as well as some fairies and other galactic women. First, I will tell you a bit about myself in regards to this topic. When I was 14, a being known as Angema Isis, which if you've all read my book, From the Fall to Lifting, know about, began her seduction of me. Over the years, she saturated my cells with a strong Syrian sexual energy. According to some of the myths and legends, a female Djinn, quote unquote, can and will fall in love with you and be very overprotective, really meaning overpossessive of you, even going so far as sabotaging any chance you have at true earthly happiness. Succubus and negative nymphs fall under this category as well. A type of Draco-reptilian, the famous Sumerian statue of the topless woman with the reptile feet, also falls into this category. The negative or infected nymphs that I have seen are human-looking, pale white, and have a devil woman look complete with horns and a tail. One female Djinn type that I found in Japan I call the codex thief. This Djinn steps in front of the codex flow intended for our soul families and uses the codexes to transform into a being more like us, but not quite. There is one more type of female Djinn that I will mention. This is one that we encountered in Missouri. This type is a blue forest-dwelling being with long red fingernails and pointed ears. At first, I mistook them for fairies, elves, or Syrian women, but upon closer inspection, they were anything but. I found out that they were nature beings back on Maldek. These beings had permanent male partners there. However, all of the males of their species were killed in the Maldek explosion. So now they tend to latch on to human men. This can also screw your life up pretty badly because, like the other females, they will drive away potential human partners out of jealousy. Sand Djinn. In the Middle East, there are caves lost to the sands of time where Djinn and some of the masters still roam free. Some of the caves are nests for feral Djinn, while others contain a throned Djinn master, usually Orion. These Djinn have also been confused with the sand ghouls of Egypt. The sand ghouls of Egypt are actually the disembodied spirits of winged reptilians, or seraphim angels. I have also noticed a set of red, blue, and white devil-looking reptilians that fit more of the biblical look and description of the Djinn, just with horns, and demons, of course, I am mentioning this now, but in all honesty, I'm not 100% sure as to whether this group is a jinn or not, but they definitely are a demon. The impression that I get from the classic jinn looks, such as the genie from Aladdin, the red devil-looking jinn for Japanese history and biblical history, is that they are from the very same species. A species that had a very unique skill set, whereas they could control the threads of fate, if you will. An interdimensional species that fell prey to the conquests of the damned. This is why I could not tell the difference between the negative Syrians and them. They are Syrian from a different timeline dimension, or a race that looks very similar to them. The only jinn that I ever conversed with was one by the name of Asmodai, or Asmodeus, or the biblical Asmodeus, slave to King Solomon. From what I could see, he started out as a human in look, but could change colors with his mood. Red was for anger and blue for happy or stable. He could also look Caucasian as well. It is my understanding that the Jinn were captured and made a slave race of the dark Anunnaki. Some have reported male Jinn are actually Anunnaki because of their looks with beards and their giant looks. There is truth to this. However, my understanding is that this occurred as the dark Anunnaki tampered with the Jinns and their own DNA. Again, the Anunnaki were known as great geneticists and tampered with a lot of the races throughout the cosmos and themselves. So I say again, these are a dark, mischievous, DNA tampered race, and this is the reason the three wishes in the genie lore always went the opposite of what the wisher wanted. It was said that one must wish for the opposite of what they want with these jinn. Jinn are just plain assholes. If you look up jinn in places such as Wikipedia, you will see a reference that all angels and demons are both jinn, but not all jinn are angels and demons. Again, the reference is from Wikipedia and not me. I know this sounds harsh and a bit hard to swallow. I was amazed that it was written here at all. But in all honesty, think about it. Could they, angels and demons, be a once sovereign race captured to do the bidding of the creators of dualism, or the Born Against, where their DNA was augmented to do the bidding of their masters and they were put into this role? In Islam, the jinn are a race of spirit beings that can be good or evil. Does this definition sound like angels and demons? My only addition to this is actually there is no true benevolent good here. An angel could be used to do something you think is good. However, there becomes the worship and the savior aspect that is actually draining your energies. So believe me, jinn can pretend to be good. For me, I do believe it is truth, and the truth was put out there for all who have eyes to see. Please ponder this yourself. From what I understand, the jinn DNA has been so polluted that they are no longer a sovereign race of their own, as I've said. With that, I would say trust no being of blue or red color that wishes to observe you, watch you, learn from you, or desires to have sex with you. And again, jinn have a variety of looks, from reptilian looking with fish-like features to goat-like appearances to human-looking that can change color. So this just means there was a lot of DNA tampering to this slave race. So you must discern what the being wants rather than its look. The three wishes are a bastardization of the power of three, since the wishes always go bad. I've spoken about this on other recordings that you've heard on our YouTube about the bastardization of the number three, the use of the triangles that people I always find within clients, all of those things, the misuse of the geometry. The geometry itself is more neutral, and it must be assigned a good or a bad task. It goes into the dualism. It is more of a neutrally based tool, such as mathematics and sciences. This next part I am going to actually talk about is going to be a little hard for people to hear, but I'm going to say it anyway. And at the end of the show, I'm going to put in a channeling that I did with Isaac back in June when I wrote some of this material, and he had more to say on the Djinn itself. But there was a poetic verse that I believe my higher self brought through, or perceived higher self, excuse me. And it was about the promises of the Djinn and also about Michael. So here we go. The power of 3 wishes made are as nigh as promises made in kindness show themselves as, but only a winged shadow in the form of a prayer unanswered. Become your own answered prayers and do not wait on time, for time is non-existent and will slip away as you grow old and bitter with regret. Sovereignty is key to humanity's true salvation. I wrote this as a poetic depiction of how the 3 wishes in our lives went wrong in several areas that I will not go into. Never depend on other beings to do the work for you. If you want something, create it. I was also angered at the time that Michael had withdrawn his energy from the earth, making everything he had been supporting energetically collapse or crumble while imposters ran around in his name, and still do to some extent. This next part is a short channeling by Michael and is also the very last message that I ever received from him. This is from him. That's a very profound and true statement, Chris. Never forget what you have said, for it is all true. Forge your own path, but I will always protect you all. Love you all, Michael. And that was channeling done on 6/27/19.
So I'm going to speak a little bit right now before you hear the channeling from Isaac, and then before you hear the second part, which is actually Chris's discussion, pondering. It's actually a pondering more than a discussion of what's going on in the realm of beings that may have been associated with angels and demons in one form or another, and the withdrawals of their energy. Why is that happening? I think what is best to be done is let that clip of Isaac, because it was channeled on a different day, and then let Chris's ponderings and his conversation come in, and then we'll come back at the very end and give maybe some theories as to why we think this is actually occurring. But before that, with this discussion on the Djinn, I have to say that for the most part, I think the first part where Chris is talking about the demonic, when people think it's demonic Djinn, in general, is pretty easy to grasp. It's actually the part of the conversation where you go into the thought that could angels and demons be Djinn. So again, finding that already written, honestly, we didn't even make this up, as some people say we do. We make everything up. They're just, out there. We didn't even make this up. It's standing right there for everyone to see. That there is a theorization that this is actually part true, or all true. What I want to do is kind of expand the conversation of angels and demons a little bit back to some of our original talks, because again, this is an expansion of conversation that we have already had. So I want to make sure people understand that clearly. So back in the day, again, we've been on the air since January 2017. We spoke about angels and demons, and I actually spoke of angels and demons being used more as an umbrella term versus a specific set of beings or a specific race or a specific creation, that these things were umbrella terms, basically meaning what was perceived to be something that was benevolent versus something that was malevolent to you and within your life. Just big, huge umbrella terms. So adding the conversation that potentially angels and demons, written in more of that traditional sense, are actually Djinn, fit right along with those umbrella terms. Unfortunately, though, it puts most of the conversation of the more traditional religious angels actually in the negative category, because they're not what they appear to be. They're angels and demons in this conversation are playing the same side. Although they appear to be playing opposites, they're actually doing something potentially harmful for you. So if you take those angels that in religion you pretty much put automatically in the benevolent side and you move them, does that mean there's no benevolence? Does that mean there's no beings? Well, no, we've actually spoken about that before. And so we often talked about, for example, we called them, call your local fire department. There are beings that are around that basically are there listening for your, calls of help or whatever. And if possible, there may be intervention. That is pure benevolence, no strings attached. This is the same as potentially, again, some people's perception of beings, for example, the saint of pets, where people call out for
St. Francis, yeah.
Saint Francis. But what we've learned is that is there a being representative of what people acknowledge as Saint Francis? Well, there sure is, but it's not just one. It's a group. This whole group, this race group, again, have their ears open and are listening and may intervene. No strings attached if they can. Now, do they answer all calls? I don't think that is actually possible. So if you move those once thought of religious angelic type beings and you move them kind of into the category of not being good, there is still plenty of good beings out there that would fall under that umbrella term that we basically started a discussion out 2 years ago, where we talked about a big concept of angels and a big concept of demons, meaning a benevolence, and groups that fall within a benevolence, really they're trying to help, no strings attached, and those that fall into a malevolent loop. So I want to make that clear because, this is an enormous concept to kind of get. And you have to think back, what have I been taught? What is my current understanding of angels and demons? And do I need to broaden my thoughts on this? Should I forget the words angels and demon and just talk about benevolence, benevolent beings that are for my highest good, and malevolent beings that are not for my highest good? Maybe I need to change the titles, but you need to have probably broaden now your current thought processes on what all of that means. So again, it is my opinion that there is no conflict past materials that we have talked about. We're now trying to get you to broaden the conversation. I do like the idea now if people are ready to change the terms, those broader categories from angels to demons to benevolence for my highest good versus malevolence. I think after 2 years, we've talked about it enough that you can kind of expand and maybe see it that way now. And so I put that out there that think of it in a broader way. The second thing I want to reiterate with this conversation that's been had is some of the concepts of what these beings potentially look like. What we really tried to show you is they could look like all kinds of things. And the reason why is because of the tampering of DNA that was done by the Dark Anunnaki. And, and even for us originally, extremely confusing because we were first approaching this and approaching a lot of things just like you would. We're looking for the standardization. We're looking for the standard look. We're looking for the standard whatever, be it a race or be it whatever. And so at first our minds did not comprehend what it really means to be able to manipulate a group and make it look like all kinds of things. So humans have a tendency in their brains to want to categorize. It's just how we function. It's just how we operate. And so it actually still lends to the conversation again, since you may not be able to know if something's good for you or not, whether you're just looking at it. You have to go back to discern the message and not the messenger. That old statement that we've used for a very, very long time. You have to actually be able to almost close your eyes to what you're looking at and actually bring in the information or the request or the style of communication or how you're the energetics, what's going on, because it's going to work both ways. You're going to have very malevolent beings who can look very angelic, but you also out there are going to be races of beings that can be quite scary and they're quite benevolent. So the expanse of our knowledge is going to see that, piece is very important. Discern the message and not the messenger. And if this conversation, as I said in the beginning, does not feel good to you right now, you shouldn't be listening to it. There is a lot of personal growth where you get to the point of shedding initial thoughts and ways of thinking, where you shed them and then you're ready for another layer and another layer. Because again, I'm sorry, people want to believe we're just going into this benevolence at time and that it's just going to be floating on a cloud playing a harp, and it's not. It's more. This is a quantum growth we're going to be going through, expansion on all realms everywhere, like a ball that's now expanding to a huge ball. So it's more information, it's more in depth, it's more things to ponder. And you have to literally be ready and at a certain place for the next piece of information and the next piece of the information and the next piece. And ponder, is it right for you? Again, are we going to reach this point at the end of our lives this time where we know it all? Absolutely not. And in fact, this piece of information, many people may not be ready to really hear and talk about and ponder in this lifetime. I will say this is probably one of the hardest pieces to really bring in, because it makes you have to completely relook at your entire belief system to even have the conversation, I think. But that's my personal opinion. The other part of this conversation that we didn't talk about yet when we talk about Djinn, that we've said it before on little things, but to include it into the conversation here is the fact that, it was trying to be alluded to when you brought up the box, where the person would put themselves in the box, let the Djinn go, and then basically, and then reverse the process where the Djinn were caged and now they were free, is that no human controls Djinn, people. This is something that is very important, because as people's skills grow, there oftentimes becomes, and sometimes, unfortunately, this thought process is, I'm going to say, encouraged by what people think are benevolent guides, where they're encouraged to believe they're in control. Okay? So we have been trying to make it very, very clear that no human walking on this earth at this current present moment controls Jim.
Yeah.
Do not.
Yeah, no one truly controls them. There was even a story about some Jewish people that decided to unleash, it was a Dybbuk at that time. You heard me refer to a Dybbuk box. And you also, if you watch the show Ghost Adventures, you know that the lead, I'm not going to mention the name here, everybody knows, I'm not going to name drop him, but on the show Ghost Adventures, you hear them talking about a Dybbuk box in a museum, haunted Dybbuk box. That is actually a Djinn, and it's a little cabinet that is basically an edifice. And the way that these Jewish people thought that it was going to hurt the Nazis, their goal was to have this Djinn, or set of them could have been in there to hurt the Nazis. What did it do? It turned on them, and they were shocked and appalled and surprised. No, the original people that were purported to control them, first of all, the ones that had total control over them were the Spindleys. They used a rod that went in through the back of the head. That's why you see the pictures of the Djinn with that weird little hairdo. That's a piece of technology that came in through the head and went in through the spine and everything. Some things came up through the other side, went through here, a quantum piece of technology used on quantumly based beings so that they could control their shifting. What the early humans did was they kept these beings in cages because they wanted beings guarding their palaces. Or they kept them trapped in edifices, such as gargoyles, and even some of the Khazad-Thul, which are also gargoyles. The same things happened to those beings, but those beings came out of it. they would stand in a quantum cage themselves, or what we would call a type of Faraday cage, blocking any sort of telepathic influence or some kind of magic, what they would consider to be magical influence. And they would open another cage that had the Djinn. That Djinn would go out and lay waste to another army or another enemy. Then they would draw it back in, almost like a magnet, and pull that being back in there, shut the cage, and then come out themselves. And there was always some kind of collateral damage. It would go after everybody, like how a wild animal would go after everybody. They used a vague reference to this in the movie The Relic that was from back in the 90s, where somebody transformed himself into a creature by drinking a liquid, and that creature was feral and went after everybody. And then they determined that some ancient tribes had, in the plot of the movie that is, had created these creatures or used that particular transformative liquid in order to create these creatures to mow down their armies while they locked themselves inside their own castles. So it's essentially the same concept that was shown in that movie. It's slightly cheesy, but it actually used a real concept. Now, I believe that was it for the moment.
So, these people, and again, there were, I don't know, maybe 1,000 or maybe more. I have no idea. But there were quite a few people in history who learned how to become what people would say, which now you should find humorous, to call themselves a Djinn master, because they weren't the masters of them.
No.
We're talking here about back in ancient times where you had magicians who actually were in service to kings, or there were kings or different spiritual people who themselves practiced this and could do this. But there were people for hire that were actually considered Djinn masters who worked in the behest of whomever their employer was, doing, again, the same thing. And they always had to put out this measure of, was the collateral damage worth what they felt they needed to do. And so it's been an interesting thing. But again, they call themselves Djinn masters, but that's not really what was going on. So an interesting dynamic that actually is occurring is that once you were a Djinn master, guess what? It's in your genetics. It's there. And if you are a Djinn that has any, if you haven't de-evolved enough that you have memory, they are not necessarily kind to those who once tried to master them. So one of the things that, has happened to people is that in this current present moment life, there could be things going on where the Djinn are back. You've seen that. I think you've seen it in some reads too, haven't you?
Oh yeah, there are Djinn, feral Djinn and captured Djinn alike. I'd actually had a dream where there was a Japanese magician that had sent a Djinn out to be his eyes and ears because he didn't want to come around me. And you could see this person or this being transmitting information back to someone. And those magicians usually worked for the Spindleys in some respect. Also,
but in the conversation that I was saying, if you were maybe not in this current present life, but in a past life or a Djinn master, there could be Djinn coming around now because now they feel it's their time to get back at you.
Yes, like if in a past life, if you were a supposed Djinn master, and these now wandering Djinn have been around for quite some time, or have woken up, or the new energies have stirred them in some way, they're going to look for the person either that helped imprison them or capture them or ordered them around. And if you happen to be that particular individual, well, then they're going to harass you as well. Most of the time, though, I've noticed that if they're not a feral Djinn, they're being sent out by somebody to watch you and harass you. And this leads back to something I was going to talk about many years ago. I encountered the Djinn by the name of Asmodeus. And he's the one in history that King Solomon turned into one of the builders of his temple. And in this, and I believe the conversations I had with Asmodai were slightly, or Asmodeus were slightly uh, false, because even though it was using real history, because I believe that Asmodai at the time, he was one of the red Djinn. He looks like his statue that's in Israel, red Djinn with little nub horns, and around the statue that's around Solomon's temple. And he was telling me some actual real history at the time, but I believe he was also the eyes and the ears for this fake Solomon that I ran across. I told you there were two of them. There was a good one and a bad one. There was a fake one that had the features of a spindly. He was slightly more muscular. He had a beard, and he had an elongated skull, from what I remember. It is my belief now that that particular Djinn was the eyes and ears for that particular spindly that didn't want to come anywhere near me until he had assessed me from a distance. See, they're cowards generally. They don't generally want to show up. They want to send other beings out on their behest to analyze the situation first to see what they're up against. And this particular spindly, I believe, sent out this particular red Djinn at the time to have conversation with me in order to get a feel for me at the time. This is actually one of the more common things. There are spindlies that have sent these out, and also these other dark magicians that I've said that also work for the spindlies. But then there's also the feral ones that basically have extremely de-evolved, and they are in nests. Think of like a hornet's nest or some kind of hive. And that's how some of these little guys operate, like the sand Djinn that are the conglomeration of looks. Then you have the fire Djinn, which look like little hellboys that have fish and lizard features that help set your house on fire, like what we just said. Those are more of the feral kind.
Right. So in comparison to, if you do consider that, possibly Djinn are those angels and demons of historic times. Obviously, we're not saying that they're feral. Those would not be considered feral beings, although they are very heavily controlled still, and doing the bidding of their masters. But we would not consider, I'm assuming you agree with me, obviously those under that category. So not all Djinn are feral. We're really talking, when we mean feral, we really are meaning the ones with no masters, because they've gotten away, or somehow that relationship, that entanglement has ended, and they're literally out there on their own right now. And that's really what we're talking about. And they do continue to kind of de-evolve as being feral, but they also can be out for revenge, honestly, if they have that part of their memory. So yes. I wanted to bring that up. The next part I wanted to bring up, really, it kind of goes along with the three wishes, but we're going to change the term and we're going to talk about contracts. Because we've kind of, again, mentioned this before, but we're going to trying now to put it all in one complete package show, where to this day, there are people that still go into contracts with these beings. Some of these contracts are extremely literal on paper. It still happens. They do it. Okay. And some of these contractual agreements are more not on paper, but with informed consent. People know what they're doing. And sometimes through indirect but very real consent. Part of the times where there's this indirect consent may be knowledge of their existence and knowledge of someone you're around who is participating in active consent. But you've become involved and still feel, though, that somehow you can be out of the agreement. You can get the benefits without the agreement. And when we mean benefits, truth of the matter is like we were talking about with Djinn and collateral damage, there is an agreement that's made, something to benefit me, but allows you what you want as well. Something to benefit me, but allows you to my clientele. Something to benefit me. And so those agreements kind of still happen. And again, it kind of goes back to a false belief by many humans that somehow they're in control.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not in control.
Not even close.
Not even close. And so, but I would tell you honestly, the Djinn that you're actually entering into that contract with, or indirectly entering into that contract with, will be happy for you to believe that you are in control.
Mm-hmm.
They'll be happy for it, because it's just, again, that's part of the game. So this stuff is still actually very much so going on. And so again, but in this particular instant, we're really talking about people who knowingly do this, okay, versus being a current toy of a Djinn, which means you have a Djinn around who's actually toying with you and playing with you, and you didn't consent, although they could have gotten in your dreams and you did consent to something. Do you see what I mean? While we talk about revoke your any agreements in dream time, or accidentally taken something you've said. But believe me, benevolent guides and true source know the difference, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you suspect that one's around, you certainly want to reach out to something potentially you want to revoke anything. Make sure you're really standing in your sovereignty, and then ask for benevolence to come in and assist you with this matter. Or sometimes, you know, people are calling Chris or whatever to have a session to talk about these things as well. The other part we'll probably talk about. Let's play the clips, and then we will come at the end and we'll talk a little bit more. The interesting thing about the show today is obviously it's a little different. What do you mean play a clip? Why isn't Chris channeling live? Well, what we want you to know is that this particular show has come together with a lot of experience, a lot of different things, and we're trying to take all this information that we've learned over months and bring it into one show. There is a lot of resistance, people, to us doing the show. And so it is not safe for Chris to channel at this present moment. And he is actually not in the best of moods. I'm going to tattle on him. It's been a very difficult morning. But you know, Chris is like, let's just get this done. Let's just get this done. I think once this show is out and it does ground itself into the Akashic, you know, we've been a little bit more stubborn and persistent to put this information out, then it may be a little bit easier to talk about. But believe me, this first time around bringing this information out for you guys to consider and ponder is not easy. And so I just put that out there for your understanding as to why it's a little bit of a different type of show, a little bit of a mishmash, but we're bringing it all together. So with that, let's go ahead and play those other two clips, and then we'll be right back.
Okay. This is going to be a channeling, I believe it's by Isaac, about the Djinn, or some variation of the story here. I'll get in the shade here so my phone doesn't decide to cut off and get too hot. There we go. The Djinn are believed to be neutral. This is a lie. None of the existing template, none of the existing specimens are redeemable because the DNA has degraded and been intermixed with too many different variations. You see, the historical references to cirrus, fish, octopi, and lizard are all true, mixed with the Syrian variation of the Anunnaki. You see, the Syrian star beings themselves are servants to that of the dark Anunnaki, with DNA intermixed therein, assimilated, if you will. You see, all that DNA is intermixed, but yet there was a pure specimen to start. So this actually concurs with the history. All angels and demons are Djinn, but not all Djinn were angels and demons, you see. This is why the Syrian star beings, as you know them to be, fit in so well with the Djinn mythology, because essentially they are them. The DNA intermix, you see, elven, and what you know of as genie. The wishes come true to that of the fool. The entanglements come true to that of the fool. Never ask for a wish that you yourselves, as a sovereign being, do not control. Do not lack in sovereignty while begging for that of wishes gone awry. You see, the other beings known as the Kajal escaped the harvest, escaped the rotting because they were immune. This does not always mean they were always good, but humans did indeed rescue them, and were Djinn once human looking, without all the DNA intermixes that the Dark Anunnaki have placed within themselves and themselves. Yes. Did they have the ability to change and shift through molecular, cellular, solid, and also color change? Yes. And the ones that are around still do. However, as I've said, trust no being of red or blue with 3 wishes in promise form. This includes, and this one will be most upset, this includes the angels of the old texts and the demons of the old texts. Demons such as Abraxas and Asmodai, and the angels such as Raphael and Michael. Think of these things for a moment. The promises of the 3 wishes. The promises therein. And the horned giants of old, also the infected, the horned ones, or the giants with the horned helmets, all fall under the Djinn category, as does the history foretell. Remember, 3 wishes are wanted by those of fools with a quantum box or a lamp. The capture being within must obey the opposite of the wish. Thank you. All right. This explains a lot. We have been having problems with communicating with Michael lately. And also any galactic being. It's like they cannot seem to understand certain parameters or certain, how can I put it? I'm not saying Michael is this way. I'm saying there's other beings that can't seem to understand certain sovereign choices, or wanting to not necessarily deviate from a soul mission, but alter it according to the wish of the sovereign being, which is myself, Joanna, and my family. Or initiate some kind of harsh lesson that the sovereign being, meaning myself, wishes to put to an end. Or won't explain why certain harsh conditions have come about. With no explanation, also the withdrawing of certain magics and influences. This has been happening with Michael. No explanation, anything that he or even the bad beings have had their mitts in. Like say if a bad being's codes have been deleted from the AI, their influence goes kaput. Michael is withdrawing his magic in the same way. And it is said that the archangels also fell under the Djinn category. Remember, Archangel, Archon. So, but Michael is really of the builder race, as we know. So, he's also of the council. So, the mystery is why that magic is being withdrawn. Also, Merlin's magic, slash Thoth. His is coming to light with the whole Emerald Tablet thing, but some of his magic is being withdrawn as well. Jesus, it's the same thing. So I'm not quite sure what is going on here. Um, Odin, he's more popular than ever, but some of his sigils, doorways, gateways, and symbols are also starting to unlock and fade away. So I'm not quite sure why these former M House members are interlinked with the withdrawing of this magic, and also making it so that things are more difficult when they withdraw this magic. This may have to do with a declaration of sovereignty that people are putting out, that of them creating their own wishes, dreams, and beliefs, versus that of a guide, versus that of a genie, versus that of a protector. The protection's always there, but I'm also seeing these like red devil type of beings that come out too, just like I found out Asmodai, or one of the original King Solomon Djinn, what he looks like, his statue. He's a red devil. Or kind of like on the TV show Lucifer, what the main character Lucifer in it looks like in his normal form, a red one with little nub horns. Uh, very much like that Djinn. And essentially he's a fallen angel. So this is actually all making sense that it's all one thing, because the Dark Anunnaki integrated the DNAs of many races into themselves when they came in to harvest. So this also makes sense that they would pick up the abilities of said beings and the looks of said beings. So what I'm saying is these Djinn, the originals, have the ability to alter what I call luck threads, or quantum threads that affect people's lives. And in this, so did these Dark Anunnaki, or genies. Same goes with sexually based ones that can stagnate you and prevent you from having a happy life, or saturate your cells with such a strange energy that you're only wanting that and not any regular humans. That's a little bit from my own life at first. And can wear your nervous system out in that area. Hence, dark nymphs taking sexual energy and the like. They're changing those threads to their liking. And let me see here, don't lose it. So all of this magic that is inhibiting sovereignty, whether it is positively or negatively based, it's still a dualism. We are coming out of the edge of dualism. We don't need dualism, light, dark, good, evil, or elements of all these things. Just be a person, sovereign person. This is what I have been able to figure out so far. With the withdrawing of the magic, and also the withdrawing of a lot of the negative overage. It still denotes dualism. Same thing with the sacred feminine energy and sacred masculine. It still denotes division and dualism. Like, this is the time for the sacred feminine. Yeah, there may be a certain energy that is causing certain change now that is of a feminine frequency. and some have been bastardized and some are positive, which is also a dualism. But don't think of it as oh, this person's sacred feminine, oh, this person's sacred masculine. No, we're all hormonally both, we're all energetically both, and there are both sacred men and women. But you can also take it a stage further and say we're just people. People that have a unique 12-strand DNA set that are sending codexes out to the rest of creation, but it's neither sacred masculine or feminine unless a certain energy is supposed to be out to correct something. Something is supposed to be in a, think of it in a sentence, but it's still all one thing. Just like the Djinn and the Dark Anunnaki and the negative Syrian star beings and some elven beings and the ones I mentioned from Maldek and the ones that serve the Dark Masters, red and blue, all of them are the same. Even the decrepit Spindlies or Dark Orions that are in dark hoods that would go around and assist people. Like the witch in Snow White offering her the apple. Think of that as like a Dark Orion giving you a gift. And have we said in Dreamtime, as we have said in Dreamtime, never accept gifts from strangers. So, this is what I wanted to say to conclude tonight's show. Thank you.
Okay, hopefully you guys got a lot of out of that recording that was just played by Isaac. I know there was another section in there that wasn't necessarily completely Djinn related that you heard me talking about Michael and associating it with the three wishes. This goes back to some of the other stuff we've experienced in our lives this year. I'm not going to go into the overt details, but just know that certain energies withdrew, as you heard me say. That I came to find out later why Michael and Jesus and Merlin and them started to withdraw. It is because of the Mandela effect that is going on right now. That and also human sovereignty. You heard Annie and me speak about on that episode about timelines of what the Dickens. If you got on our Patreon, you heard the entire thing. What happened was they wanted to step back and assess the merging of the timelines. And I'm not going to go into overt, complex detail. I'm just saying this is why they stepped back. That and also humans declaring their sovereignty from other beings, such as Michael, even though he's benevolent. He stepped back that energy from around us because we had to take a second look at some of the other information, and with his energy influence around it, we couldn't exactly completely do that. Now, I have not heard from him since that channel in which I read a little while ago. I've not heard from him since. I have not heard from Merlin or Jesus. But I have been told by Isaac and several others that everything was fine. It's just that they had to step back and reassess. I wanted to clarify that other half of the clip.
So let's also take a step backwards to clarify again the discussion of these beings, Michael or Michael, Jesus or Enlil, okay, Merlin. What was another name for Merlin? Thoth, and understand that in the context of what we are talking about, obviously, a lot of these beings are called on that could be actually have religiously been thought of as one of the angels or demons. So again, the archangels and different people that were in the religious texts as being these benevolent, but in all honesty, in some of the conversations we tried to have before now, we wanted you to give consideration again that pretty much most all religions were either created for a domination and control effect or were perverted from something that was very good and clean and perverted to add into it things that would add a domination and control type of effect. So we are separating, when we talk about Michael or Michael, we are not talking about Archangel Michael. That's important for you to know. They're not the same. So there are plenty, as what Chris says, duplicates, plenty of beings who would be willing to pretend to be, that would fall into that angel and demon category. So that's, again, something you have to open yourself up to. You know, is there, I feel so strongly connected to, let's say, Michael or Michael, but you're saying now, well, maybe you really are connected to, you know, the being and have had benevolent, for your highest good moments with the being known as Michael or Michael, because he's very real. So is Jesus. So is Thoth. So is Merlin. They're really real. But throughout history, their stories and who they are has also been perverted. So again, we're distinguishing benevolence and benevolent beings, or beings who are now benevolent, because believe me, they had their bad days too, okay? And we're distinguishing them from, let's say, traitorous duplicates, okay? It's very important for people to not mix in their head that we're speaking out of both sides of our mouth, because we're not. We've always tried to make clear that there are both. So if you're, you know, one of my thought processes has always been, if you really want to know what's really real, you've got to clear out of the water certain things that are muddying the water of thought. And I hate to say it, but the energies of those true benevolent beings muddy the waters of your thoughts. I think that's part of the reason they had to do this. Because when you feel, let's say you've had real encounters with Jesus, with Michael, and you've had them just in thoughts, conversations, and feelings, but you've also been heard of religious indoctrination, of worshiping, of going to them to solve your problems or whatever. That part of it is the manipulation. That part is. But in your lifetime, you've been potentially intertwined with both. So how do you untangle it all? Part of it is a stepping back potentially of the benevolence, so you can really get a handle of this and really start to let this go, which means letting go of the worshiping of these beings, of the turning to those beings as a savior of all of this stuff. And then it allows at a later time for a reintroduction of the real beings. So I want you to ponder that as well. So again, as Isaac, have they left? Absolutely not. Do they care? They absolutely do. But this is now about detangling all of that big ball of yarn mess that I always say, where all the thoughts and all the perversions, because the darkness was really good at taking things that were quite true and then perverting them, or perverting the people within it, into their own creation to make you think that that's really what reality is when it's not. So, we want you to really, think about what we're talking about, especially in the areas of angels and demons. Separate out in your mind that there actually is true benevolence out there. No strings attached. They just want what is for your highest good, and they don't necessarily want a darn thing back. And that is really real. But you also have to learn about the other side, where there was domination and control, and still is, and how that works to manipulate you in ways you had no clue about. And then again, we always talk about the skills of sovereignty and what you need to be doing to move forward, because we are actually amazing beings in these skin suits with amazing abilities. Now we have to learn all about it and learn what to do. So again, this particular show on Djinn, who ever thought when we said the word Djinn, now we're going to be talking about angels. So it's a lot for people to take on. We hope we've really, really given you a lot to think about. So any last words from you?
No, just be careful, though, the beings of which you are conversing with. The Djinn that we speak of I've also put lineage curses on families as well. This is why I always emphasize auditing your genetic memory and your current present self, and doing all those audits and everything in sessions. This is why I encourage revoking lineage curses or perceived lineage curses. But be careful of the beings that you deal with. Since Michael has withdrawn that energy, even though some things that he had his hands in began to collapse, just so that people could build it back up in their own way. There are a lot of fakes still floating around out there. I believe he's taking care of some of them in the background, but any being that is purporting itself to be Archangel Michael, ignore that name. That is not a legitimate name. There might be even true information that comes out of it, but ignore that name. Just remember Archangel, Archon. Remember that comparison, because it's essentially the same thing, and it ties right back into the dualism. All angels and demons are Djinn, but not all Djinn are angels and demons. It goes right back into that. The Archangel, Archon, demon, the same exact thing. Promoting savior, promoting villain. It's the exact same thing. Just remember that, folks, when you look at these old historic texts.
And then what to do, as we said: assert your sovereignty, assert your right not to have these beings around, ask for a true benevolent source and your true benevolent guides to help you with this matter. And one other thing, if you are ever dealing with a being that you are unsure about, audit them. And so you may want to just tell them really quick with that, Chris.
Yes. Whenever a being makes contact with you or you're getting information, this is more for my channeling brethren that's out there. Always remember, you can question the information that is coming through, question everything that comes through. You're not being rude to those that are legit. The only ones that are going to get perturbed or butthurt are ones that you're defying their agenda in some fashion. So remember that, and remember that to ask true benevolent source creator or source energy to audit the being that is within your presence, and you ask that being to agree to the audit. If they do not agree to the audit, tell them to get lost, because they're malevolent. When a positive, or should I say one without a negative agenda or misaligning agenda, conducts an audit, and they're still standing there in front of you, or they're still speaking to you telepathically, and nothing's happened, that means they're legit. That's another way, other than telling them to show the heart space or feel the heart space. That's another way of getting them to show their legitimacy. So, anything else?
No, I think hopefully we've covered it. So we hope you guys have enjoyed this show and get a lot out of it, and a lot to think about, and a lot to potentially now apply to your life right now. Other than that, again, just kind of an ending blessing. Basically, I think what we would like to say is, remember, it is a strength to deny the known and ponder the true nature of what is around. Benevolence will never be offended by you asserting your right to know. So with that and new knowledge, then you have the power to manifest differently. So we hope you guys enjoyed tonight's show. And again, we will see you later. Bye.
Bye, everybody.